You know, I get tired of this. Like Israel can't be discussed. Israel is always discussed. Israel is always criticized. Where do you turn where it's not? Turn on CNN, turn on MSNBC, read the New York Times or the Washington Post. Watch punks like this. It's all propaganda. The vast majority is just flat out lies. But the idea that Israel can't be criticized, that's all we hear. Not from criticism of Qatar and Saudi Arabia or what Iran is doing to its own people. We barely hear about the Uyghurs. They're so worried about Muslims who are in death camps, literally being slaughtered and raped and brutalized by the communist Chinese. We don't hear about that, do we? No. The Muslims who live in Israel are free. They're free to hold any job they want. They're free to get elected to their parliament, the Knesset. They're free to vote. The Jews in the Arab countries barely exist. Here's what I want you to understand. This is just one disgusting punk. There's a whole generation of young people who are being taught this. You weren't taught this. I wasn't taught this. There's a whole generation of young people in colleges and universities, and now K through 12 is being targeted by the communist Chinese and Qatar. We're being taught that these terrorists are nothing more than victims, so they're just lashing out. We're being taught that the Jews are the oppressors, that they must be eliminated. We're being taught that the United States empowers Israel and the Jews, and so the United States government is corrupt. It must be destroyed. And in fact, the entire West is the problem. And when you read this book on power, I have an entire section on this, and you're going to see how this works, how this is broken down, and so forth. But for now, this is enough. Go ahead.
Every student they can manage to justify deportation so far who support Palestine and criticize Israel.
It's not a matter of supporting Palestine, whatever that is. What's Palestine? It's not in the Bible. Well, what is it? Or oppose Israel. That's not what they're marching. They are carrying the flags of terrorist organizations, Hamas, Islamic Jihad, the Muslim Brotherhood, Hezbollah. These are terrorist organizations that have killed Americans, slaughtered Americans. And the Muslim Brotherhood is the umbrella group for most of these terrorist groups. It was behind the murder of Sadat, as an example. It's behind the murder of many, many Muslims. Go ahead.
Our Department of Justice has announced that they want to file hate crime indictments and terrorism charges against critics of Israel, especially student protesters and leaders here on college campuses in the United States, to jail them.
Not against critics of Israel. We've always had critics of Israel. We've always had critics of Israel. That's not the issue. The issue is if you're going to be violent and riotous. The issue is if you are effectively a mouthpiece for a terrorist organization or a foreign government, a terrorist state. If you're going to disrupt colleges and universities, you're going to make it impossible for them to do what they're supposed to do, which is teach. You're going to destroy private property. You're going to intimidate Jews, bully Jews, commit acts of violence against Jews. He acts like people are coming in and they have an opinion against Israel and therefore they're being deported. That's not what's happening. If that's what was happening, you know, half the Democrat Party in Congress would have to be deported, I guess. Go ahead.
To jail them. The FBI is already monitoring every American and immigrant and wannabe immigrant who is criticizing Israel or supporting Palestine.
Tell me, are our prisons filled with people criticizing Israel? Where is this prison? Mr. Producer, where's this prison? I'd love to go there. We'll take our cameras there. There's no such thing. You know, I get tired of this. Like Israel can't be discussed. Israel is always discussed. Israel is always criticized. Where do you turn where it's not? Turn on CNN, turn on MSNBC, read the New York Times or the Washington Post. Watch punks like this. It's all propaganda. The vast majority is just flat out lies. But the idea that Israel can't be criticized, that's all we hear. Not from criticism of Qatar and Saudi Arabia or what Iran is doing to its own people. We barely hear about the Uyghurs. They're so worried about Muslims who are in death camps, literally being slaughtered and raped and brutalized by the communist Chinese. We don't hear about that, do we? No. The Muslims who live in Israel are free. They're free to hold any job they want. They're free to get elected to their parliament, the Knesset. They're free to vote. The Jews in the Arab countries barely exist. In Iran, I think we're down to, in Iraq, I think we're down to, I think it was 20 families. And you can go all throughout the Middle East and you'll find the same thing. Anyway, go ahead.
On their social media, which they have labeled as counterterrorism efforts in the name of our national security. Us Americans all know what that means. National security, counterterrorism is just another excuse to invade our privacy.
No, it's not. This is where the kooks on the radical extreme right, we're constitutional conservatives. We're not on the right or the left. We're right. I've told you, the political spectrum for me is you've got the fascists and you've got the Marxists. The fascists, the Islamists, the Marxists, the communists. But the spectrum is like this. It's an oval. And so the fascists and the Marxists are here, and we, the constitutional conservatives, are here. I'm tired of being told that if you support what the founders created, a country, what the framers created, our Constitution, that you're a right-winger. Excuse me. Am I a right-winger? Because I embrace our founding and our Constitution? We must not allow the left or the radicals on the right to define who we are. We're not moderates. But when it comes to the political spectrum, we're not here or here. We're right here. We are the North Star. We're the guidepost. You're supposed to be starting from the basis of what you and I believe, what the founders fought for and the framers created. And so what we have here is this so-called sort of America Firster outfit that hates America, that says some of the same things that this lowlife says, right? And then we have the radical leftists who say the things that this lowlife says. And so their view of America and their view of foreign policy, in many ways, there's an overlap. I can remember when we had some of these nut jobs on the extreme right talking about Bernie Sanders makes a lot of sense. Bernie Sanders' foreign policy is not all that much different from the radical, extremist, right isolationists. His hate for Israel, Netanyahu, is not all that different from the radical, extremist, isolationists. Think about it. Go ahead.
The Trump regime also has a playbook that they're going by called Project Esther, developed by the Heritage Foundation, the same people behind Project 2020.
Hey, Project Esther, the Heritage Foundation, they deserve a lot of credit. You know Queen Esther from the Bible? She was a heroine. And what the Heritage Foundation set up was an entire strategy to fight anti-Semitism in this country, to fight the Qatar, Hamas, Iranian, Communist Chinese propaganda effort. And they talked about the need to use the immigration laws. You know, you're not supposed to be importing foreigners into our country who want to overthrow our country. No generation has ever done that of Americans. It is a privilege to come into our country. It's not a right. It's an immigration law. We don't have to let anybody in our country. We can shut the whole damn thing down now. So this idea that we have extra constitutional protections for foreigners who happen to step into the United States and they have certain rights that you and I don't even have is absurd. And yet this is the argument. Why? Because they want to change the nature of the country, the demographics of the country, in order to advance their revolution. Revolution by foreign money coming in, revolution by certain foreign students coming in, unvetting, open borders, revolution by taking over our faculty on our college campuses, our administrators on our college campuses, shutting down academic freedom, shutting down free speech while claiming they want free speech, chasing Jews down the street, burning the American flag, and yet claiming it's not only free speech, but if you actually do something about it, I have due process rights. These are visitors in our own country.
For all this and much more, sign up for LevinTV.